A taxi driver in Japan just retired his Toyota Crown after 1.4 million kilometers. That's 870,000 miles on the original engine. No rebuild, no major overhaul, just disciplined maintenance and a philosophy most Western drivers have never heard of. Meanwhile, the average American trades in their car at 80,000 miles because they are terrified of repair bills. Here's the thing. Japanese drivers aren't doing anything magical. They are following a system, one that has been refined over decades and proven across millions of vehicles. Today, I'm breaking down the exact Japanese methods that make engines last over 1 million kilometers. And number 4 is so simple, you will be angry nobody told you sooner. The warm-up protocol. Let's start with something most drivers get completely wrong: cold starts. In America, we have been told modern engines do not need warm-up time. Just start it and go. That advice is technically correct and practically disastrous. Japanese drivers treat cold engines like sleeping giants. They do not rev them. They do not immediately hit the highway. They let oil circulate. Here is why this matters. When your engine sits overnight, 90% of the oil drains back into the oil pan. The first 30 seconds of operation create metal-on-metal contact throughout your engine. Japanese taxi drivers, fleet operators, and high-mileage champions all follow the same ritual. Start the engine. Wait 30 to 60 seconds without touching the accelerator. Then drive gently for the first 5 to 10 minutes, keeping engine speed below 3,000 revolutions per minute until the temperature gauge reaches normal. One Toyota taxi company in Osaka documented their results over 15 years. Vehicles following this protocol averaged 40% longer engine life compared to drivers who immediately drove aggressively. That is not a minor difference. That is the difference between an engine lasting 300,000 kilometers and one lasting over 500,000 kilometers. The oil change philosophy. Here is where Japanese maintenance culture diverges dramatically, and it is a completely different approach. In the United States, many people follow manufacturer-recommended intervals, sometimes stretching them because oil is expensive and time is short. Japanese high-mileage drivers operate on a completely different philosophy. They change oil based on driving conditions, not odometer readings. A Japanese taxi running Tokyo traffic all day changes oil every 3,000 to 5,000 kilometers, roughly every 3 to 4 weeks. City driving, constant stop and go, and short trips that never fully warm the engine contaminate oil faster than highway cruising. The math is simple. Contaminated oil means accelerated wear. Accelerated wear means engine failure. Japanese fleet operators calculated that spending an extra $200 per year on oil changes saves $5,000 to $10,000 in engine repairs over the vehicle's lifetime. One legendary taxi driver in Hiroshima kept meticulous records for 28 years. His 1995 Toyota Comfort accumulated 1.2 million kilometers. He changed oil every 4,000 kilometers without exception. When mechanics finally inspected his engine internals, they found wear patterns consistent with an engine at 200,000 kilometers. That is 6 times less wear than expected. The secret was not special oil. It was religious consistency. The rev limiter mentality. Japanese drivers treat their tachometers like heart rate monitors. There is an unspoken rule among high-mileage enthusiasts. Keep your engine in its comfort zone, and it will reward you with longevity. Most gasoline engines operate most efficiently between 1,500 and 3,500 revolutions per minute. This is the sweet spot where fuel combustion is complete, temperatures are stable, and mechanical stress is minimal. Japanese driving culture embraces this completely. Watch traffic in Tokyo or Osaka. You will notice something strange. Drivers accelerate smoothly, almost lazily by American standards. They anticipate stops rather than braking hard. They maintain steady speeds rather than constantly surging and slowing. This is not just about fuel economy. It is about reducing thermal stress, the repeated heating and cooling that causes metal fatigue. Every time you floor the accelerator, engine temperatures spike. Every aggressive stop causes rapid cooling. Over hundreds of thousands of cycles, this thermal stress cracks seals, warps components, and destroys gaskets. A study by the Japan Automobile Research Institute found that aggressive driving patterns increased engine wear by 65% compared to smooth driving over equivalent distances. One Japanese trucking company implemented strict revolutions per minute guidelines for their fleet in 2008. Drivers were trained to accelerate gradually and maintain steady highway speeds. Within 5 years, their engine replacement costs dropped by 38%, and average vehicle lifespan increased from 600,000 to 850,000 kilometers. The cooling system obsession. If you ask a Japanese mechanic what kills engines, they won't say oil, they'll say heat. And they're absolutely right. Before we continue, if you're learning something new, hit that like button. It helps more than you know. Japanese maintenance culture treats cooling systems with almost paranoid attention. Here is the protocol that high-mileage drivers follow religiously. They flush the coolant every 40,000 kilometers or 2 years, whichever comes first. They replace the thermostat every 80,000 to 100,000 kilometers, even if it appears to be working fine. They inspect the water pump at every timing belt service. They replace the radiator cap every 50,000 kilometers. That last one sounds absurd, right? A $15 radiator cap? Here's the thing. The radiator cap maintains system pressure, and a weak cap allows coolant to boil at lower temperatures. Microscopic overheating events accumulate. Head gaskets weaken. Cylinder walls warp imperceptibly. By the time you notice a problem, the damage is catastrophic. Japanese taxi companies discovered this the hard way in the 1990s. After analyzing hundreds of engine failures, they found that 40% traced back to cooling system neglect, often something as simple as a degraded radiator cap or old coolant that had lost its protective properties. The fix cost pennies. The engine replacement cost tens of thousands. The fuel quality discipline. Japanese drivers are obsessive about fuel quality in ways that seem excessive until you understand the engineering. First, they avoid running tanks below a quarter full. The fuel pump sits inside the gas tank, submerged in fuel that keeps it cool. When you consistently run near empty, the pump overheats, wears faster, and eventually fails. More critically, sediment and debris accumulate at the tank bottom. Running low means the fuel filter and injectors process concentrated contamination. Second, Japanese high-mileage drivers add fuel system cleaner every 10,000 kilometers. Not the cheap stuff, professional-grade cleaners that dissolve carbon deposits and keep injectors flowing properly. Third, and this is crucial, they never let fuel sit. Drivers who do not drive frequently will top off tanks and add stabilizer. Old fuel degrades, forms varnish, and clogs the entire fuel delivery system. One Honda dealer in Nagoya tracked customer vehicles for over a decade. Customers who followed strict fuel system maintenance had injector replacement rates 70% lower than average. Their fuel pumps lasted twice as long. Small habits, massive results. In Japan, timing belt replacement isn't maintenance. It's a sacred ritual. Western drivers often push timing belts to 100,000 miles or beyond, gambling that the manufacturer's interval has a safety margin. Japanese drivers replace them early, typically at 70,000 to 80,000 kilometers, about 60% of the recommended interval. Here's the logic. A timing belt failure on an interference engine destroys the entire motor. Valves collide with pistons. Cylinder heads crack. The repair bill often exceeds the vehicle's value. Japanese fleet operators calculated that early belt replacement costs roughly $400 to $600. Engine replacement after belt failure costs $4,000 to $8,000. The math is obvious. What's not obvious is the secondary benefit. When you replace a timing belt early, you also replace the water pump, tensioners, and idler pulleys, components that often fail around the same time. You are essentially resetting your engine's clock. A Japanese trucking company in Fukuoka documented this approach across 200 vehicles over 20 years. Not a single timing belt failure. Zero catastrophic engine losses from belt-related issues. The early replacement program paid for itself within the first 5 years. The transmission synergy. Japanese drivers understand something fundamental. Your engine and transmission are partners. Abuse one, and you stress the other. Automatic transmission fluid in Japan gets changed every 40,000 to 50,000 kilometers. Not the lifetime fluid nonsense that manufacturers claim to save on maintenance costs. Fresh fluid, regular intervals. The connection to engine longevity is direct. A struggling transmission forces the engine to work harder. Delayed shifts mean higher engine revolutions per minute. Harsh engagements create drivetrain shock that reverberates through engine mounts and internals. For manual transmissions, Japanese drivers are famous for smooth shifting. No grinding, no forcing gears, perfect rev matching on downshifts. This is not showing off. It is preservation. A Toyota dealership in Sapporo studied vehicles that reached 500,000 kilometers. The common factor was not the model or year. It was owners who maintained both engine and transmission as an integrated system. Here is something uniquely Japanese that Western drivers rarely consider: meticulous record keeping. High-mileage Japanese vehicles come with service histories that read like medical records. Every oil change is dated and documented. Every fluid flush is recorded. Every component replacement is logged with mileage and part numbers. This discipline serves two purposes. First, it ensures nothing gets forgotten. When you have written records, you cannot convince yourself that the oil change was recent when it is actually 3,000 kilometers overdue. Second, it creates accountability. Japanese mechanics reviewing these records can spot patterns, identify emerging issues, and recommend preventive maintenance before failures occur. One taxi company in Kyoto requires drivers to maintain personal vehicle logs. At the end of each shift, they record mileage, fuel consumption, and any unusual sounds or behaviors. This practice caught countless minor issues before they became major failures. The inspection culture. Japan's shaken inspection system forces vehicle owners to maintain their cars properly or face massive bills. Every 2 years, vehicles undergo rigorous government-mandated inspections. If they fail, you cannot legally drive them. This creates a maintenance culture that simply does not exist in countries with minimal inspection requirements. Beyond legal compliance, Japanese drivers embrace voluntary inspections. Many visit mechanics for seasonal checkups, pre-trip inspections before long journeys, and immediate diagnosis of any unusual symptom. The Japanese phrase is hayame ni, which means early or in advance. Address problems early before they cascade into expensive failures. A small oil leak caught immediately costs $50 to fix. That same leak ignored for 20,000 kilometers can starve the engine of lubrication and cause $5,000 in damage. The mindset difference. Ultimately, the Japanese method is not about any single technique. It is about a philosophy. Japanese drivers view their vehicles as long-term partners, not disposable appliances. They invest time and modest money consistently, rather than ignoring maintenance until catastrophic failure. The results speak for themselves. Japanese domestic market vehicles regularly exceed 300,000 kilometers. Taxis routinely hit 500,000 to 800,000 kilometers. The legends, the drivers who combine all these methods, push past 1 million kilometers. Meanwhile, Western markets convince consumers that 100,000 miles is old, that modern cars are too complicated for long-term ownership, and that it is better to lease and trade than to maintain and keep. The Japanese method proves this is a lie. Your engine was designed to last hundreds of thousands of kilometers. It will, if you treat it right. Warm it up gently. Change the oil religiously. Keep the cooling system perfect. Drive smoothly. Maintain the transmission. Document everything. Inspect regularly. That is it. No magic. No expensive modifications. Just discipline, consistency, and respect for engineering. 1 million kilometers is not a miracle. It is a choice. That is all for today. If this changed how you think about car maintenance, smash that like button and subscribe for more. Drop a comment telling me your vehicle's mileage and whether you are implementing any of these methods. Thanks for watching. I will see you in the next one.